Today we're going to learn uh, the need for classification of organisms and the science that deals with the classification of organisms. Fine. We come to the main topic, need for classification of organisms. Why do we need to classify the organisms? We know, children, last time I told you that there exists biodiversity on the earth. Biodiversity means the different variations we see in all the species. A number of species of plants, a number of species of animals, and there are also a group of organisms which is omnipresent but invisible to our naked eye, namely the microorganisms. Fine. So there exist variations, there exist a number of species of these organisms, and when you need to study them in a systematic manner, then you need to classify them. Okay, so classification helps to make the study of organisms more easy, more simple, more meaningful. That is the main reason why we need to classify the organism. For example, now suppose you go to a library and all the books are lying in a very random manner, and I ask you to pick up a bio book. It will be very difficult for you to check it out from all that pile of books. But if in a library, there are this uh, uh, the cupboards, shelves present with all the names properly attached, and all the the books are properly piled up in their shelves, in the respective shelves, then it becomes very easy for you to pick up that book and get it to me. Fine. Similarly, if all the organisms are simply not categorized properly, then study becomes very difficult. So if you classify them, then it will save a lot of time and it will become more easy for you to study them. So that is why there came a need for classification of organisms. Fine. Also, when you learn about the classification, it's very important that you name the organisms, because plants and animals around us, we know only the plants and animals around us by their local names. So if there is a person who is who knows about a particular organism and he goes to study about it in another country, then if he doesn't know a standard name for that particular organism, then it will be very, very difficult for him to study that particular organism. So when you learn about the classification of organism, it is also very important that you name the organism. The organism is given a name which is universally accepted. Fine. So that is also one task of classification of organisms, and the people or the scientists who study about classification and naming of organism, you call them as taxonomists. This I told you last time also. So taxonomy is the study of science which deals with classifying the organisms based on their observations, based on both their morphological as well as anatomical observations or characteristic features, as well as naming of the organism. So all this you learn under taxonomy. So why do we need to classify the organisms? First of all, it helps you to find out, or it helps you to learn the importance to find out the interrelationship between the organisms. Last time I told you, in spite of all the variations of plants and animals around us, it's very important that you maintain these species intact, because these organisms are interdependent on each other, and in case any number decreases, then that is going to cause instability in the ecosystem. So it's very important that you maintain that particular you maintain that species of the organisms. Fine. So when you study about the organisms, it's very important that you classify them so that you know the interrelationship of the organisms on one another, or between each other. Second, it also helps you to understand the developmental aspects of the organism. You know how their zygote is formed, how the zygote forms an embryo, and the embryo eventually forming the organism. So it becomes a basis for studying a number of other scientific streams can also be studied once you know the basis of development of the organisms. Fine, you can make a comparative study, and it also helps in the study of evolution. You have learned about it last time, embryology, how it is the comparative embryology, how it is important in the process of evolution. Then it also, classification is very important, because there are a number of different studies based on the classification of organisms. Last year, children, you learned about the classification of plants, classification of animals in detail. Fine. So this was this, when you study about the morphological features as well as the anatomical anatomical characteristics of an animal, it is possible because of classifications, because possible because of taxonomy. So classification is very important, number one, because it helps to make your study simple. It makes it helps, it gives more meaning to your studies. Okay. Secondly, it helps you to remember things very in a very vivid manner. Fine. If it is not if anything is not classified properly, you tend to forget it. Fine. So classifications help you to, it improves your memory. Fine. You are able to remember things when it is classified properly, put into different groups and categories. Thirdly, classification helps you to estimate the interrelationship between the organism. Fourth, it helps you to learn the basis of the development of the organism. And the fifth, it helps a number of various studies, biological studies, are dependent upon classification. That is why that is the importance of classification. So you need to classify the organisms. Okay, so that's the need for classification. Fine. Then we are going to 3-domain classification. Now, 3-domain classification, or 3 domains of life, was introduced by Carl Woese. He was a famous microbiologist, as mentioned in your textbook. And initially, there was Mr. Whittaker. Okay, there was another scientist called as Whittaker, who had classified organisms into 5 kingdoms, namely Kingdom Monera, Kingdom Protista, Kingdom Fungi, Kingdom Plantae, and Kingdom Animalia. So that was how the organisms were classified into. Now this man, he introduced, the scientist or this taxonomist, he introduced another a 3-domain classification. So domain was a level above the kingdoms. Okay, so Whittaker had classified the organisms based on kingdoms, and this man, he classified the organisms based on domains. So domain is one level up than the kingdom. So he introduced 3 domains of life, or 3-domain classification, based on the sequence of 16S ribosomal RNA genes. Now, what are ribosomal RNA genes? These genes are very important for the formation of ribosomal RNA, and ribosomal RNA plays a very important role in transcription and translation, which you have learned last year and which you will learn much more in detail next year. Fine. So transcription and translation is the formation of proteins. Okay, so I'm not going to go into the detail of that. So based on the sequencing of these ribosomal RNA genes present in the nucleus of these organisms, he classified the organisms into 3 domains, namely archaea, then bacteria, and once again, I'm so sorry. So he classified organisms into 3 domains, namely archaea, bacteria, and eukarya. Fine. Now archaebacteria and bacteria includes all bacteria. So they are all prokaryotic in nature. Fine. They are unicellular and they are prokaryotic in nature. Archaebacteria includes all the ancient bacteria. Okay, it is believed that this particular domain includes the bacteria which were present at the time of the origin of Earth. Fine. They still exist today. We call them as thermophiles or halophiles, because these are very strong, very resistant bacteria, and can survive in high saline conditions, salt condition, as well as high temperature conditions. Hence they are called as halophiles and thermophiles respectively. Example of archaebacteria is Methanococcus, which is present in biogas plant for the formation of methane. Fine. So that is archaebacteria. Eubacteria are those bacteria or bacteria, simply you call it as bacteria, that domain. These are the bacteria which is present to date. Okay, the different types of bacteria which is present in water, soil, air, etc. To date is called they are included under eubacteria. And you have eukarya, including all the eukaryotic organisms. Now I think I hope that the difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Anyway, I will tell you the two basic differences between the two. Prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Pro means primitive, karyo means nucleus. Okay, so these organisms have got primitive nucleus, and eukaryotes means eu means true, so and karya means nucleus. So these organisms have true nucleus in their cell. So that is the basic difference, the meaning of the term prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Secondly, second difference between the two, prokaryotes usually are all unicellular organisms. It includes all the unicellular organisms. So all bacteria are prokaryotic in nature. Eukaryotes may contain unicellular organisms, but majority of them are multicellular organisms. We have organisms, unicellular organisms like amoeba, then paramecium, euglena, which you have learned last year also, all included under eukaryotic, under eukaryotes. Okay, so there are unicellular organisms, but majority of them are multicellular. The next difference between the two is prokaryotes, they have a very simple nucleus. Okay, their nucleus consists of only the genetic material. Okay, whereas eukaryotes have got a well defined nucleus, a true nucleus. The nucleus more or less present in the center of the cell. It is covered by a nuclear membrane. There's a nucleoplasm, the fluid inside. The nucleolus is present, and chromatin fibers, that is genetic material, is suspended in the nucleoplasm. Such a type of organism is called as a eukaryotic organism having a well defined nucleus. And the other difference between the two is prokaryotes do not have double membraned organelles. They will lack organelles like mitochondria, Golgi bodies, lysosomes, endoplasmic reticulum. All these are absent in prokaryotes, whereas in a eukaryotic cell, all double membraned organelles like mitochondria, chloroplast, Golgi bodies, endoplasmic reticulum, lysosomes, all these are present in eukaryotic organisms. So that's the basics. There is a basic difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Okay, so Carl Woese, he classified the organisms into three major domains: archaea, bacteria, and eukarya. Okay, and then these three domains included the six kingdoms. Okay, the five kingdom classification according to Whitaker was also introduced along into this. So you have archaebacteria. Under eubacteria we have kingdom Monera. Then under eukaryotes we have kingdom Protista, kingdom Fungi, kingdom Plantae, and kingdom Animalia. So altogether now there were six kingdoms coming. So you have domain Archaea with kingdom Archaea under it. Then with eukaryote you had eubacteria, we have kingdom Protista coming under that, and under eukarya we have got kingdom I'm so sorry, under Archaea we have kingdom Archaea coming down, okay, beneath that. Then under kingdom under domain bacteria we have kingdom Monera coming, okay, included under that. And under eukarya we have kingdom Protista, we have kingdom fungi, we have kingdom Animalia and kingdom Plantae included under that. So that's about three domain classification. Three domain classification, what all things you have to remember, children? You have to remember it was introduced by Carl Woese. Then he classified the organisms into three domains, namely archaea, bacteria and eukarya, and this was based on the sequence of 16S ribosomal RNA genes. Okay, so that helped him to introduce or classify these organisms on the basis of three domains, namely archaea, bacteria and eukarya. And a domain is a category which is above all. Below that you have kingdoms coming. So finally you have three domains under which there are 6 kingdoms coming under that, and 5 kingdom classification was introduced by Whitaker. The 6th kingdom is archaea, which was introduced by, so you have a domain and a kingdom similar to under the same name as introduced by Woese. So that's about 3 domain classification. Then we go into these two terms, taxonomy and systematics. Now what is taxonomy? It's a branch of science where you deal with the study of principles and procedures of classification. Okay, so when you are when a new organism is discovered, okay, taxonomy deals with collection of the organism. Okay, so discovery of an organism, suppose, fine, so collection of the organism. Second, identification of the organism. Third, observing the organisms for its characters. Okay, fifth is naming the organism, and finally classifying it. All this you learn under taxonomy. This particular term taxonomy was coined by A.P.T. Candolle. Father of taxonomy is Carolus Linnaeus, and you have Indian taxonomist also. Father of Indian taxonomy is Santappo. Because this man, he classified the Indian plants and animals, the plants and animals of Indian origin. The entire this particular subject of taxonomy depends on the fundamental principles of this particular branch is based on, number one, characterization and identification. Fine, so you identify the organism based on its characters, you study its morphological as well as its anatomical peculiarities once you discover an organism. Second is you name the organisms, nomenclature. You according to the characteristic feature, a scientific name is given to this particular organism, and finally you classify it based on the visible morphological characters, so it becomes very simple to study the features of the organism. So these are the basis on which the principle of taxonomy depend on. Now initially you have taxonomy divided into classical taxonomy and modern taxonomy. Classical taxonomy is the old method of taxonomy that was based only on the morphological characters. Okay, just by observing the organism, suppose if it is a fish, you just look at its scales, you look at its eyes, you look at its mouth, its fin, etc. Whatever is external, based on the external features, the classification was done. But now we have modern taxonomy, which deals with both internal as well as external characters, also the structure of cell associated with it, then the developmental process, whether it is whether the organism develops external fertilization, or is it developing by internal fertilization, how do the entire process of the development takes place, that also can be found in taxonomy. And also the ecological information of the organism, that is the place where it lives, whether how does it adapt to that particular habitat, all that information you can find it in modern taxonomy. So taxonomy deals with, again I'm telling you, taxonomy deals with collection of the organism, study of its characteristic features, both anatomical as well as morphological features. Then you learn about the naming of the organism is also included, the study of and then classifying the organisms based on their similarities. Fine. All this is included under taxonomy. Now systematics. Taxonomy and systematics are actually very similar words. They have very less difference between the two. Now what is systematics? This systematics in a literal sense means classification of organism based on similarities and differences. So that is what is systematics. Coming to systematics, this word systematics is derived from systema, meaning systematic arrangement of organisms in Latin language. Fine. So systema is a Latin word, and that is how systematics word was derived from this. It means systematic classification of animals or organism based on similarity and differences. Okay, so and this particular word was first used by Carolus Linnaeus. I told you he is also called as the father of taxonomy. So systematics, he said that systematics is a relationship amongst the organism. So when it's a relationship, you learn about the similarities and the differences of the organisms. Fine. So that is what is called as systematics. As I told you, the terms like classification, systematics, taxonomy, there are very fine lines to differentiate these three terms, and usually taxonomists may use it very randomly. Okay, it is interchangeable and randomly used by taxonomists, but there are certain exceptions as mentioned in your book. Simpson in 1961, he relates all these three terms into a separate level. He said that systematic is the study of diversity of organisms and all their comparative as well as evolutionary relationship between all the organisms based on their anatomy, based on their ecology, based on their physiology and biochemistry. Anatomy, I hope you understand, internal features. Ecology, their relationship with the habitat, how they adapt to the habitat. Then physiology, the internal life processes that takes place in the organism. For example, digestion, circulation, reproduction, all these are physiological processes. And biochemistry, the metabolic activities that takes place in the cell, the structure of their cell, the functioning of the cell, organelles, etc. All this you learn under systematic. So it's a very subjective study of everything about the organism, about the diverse organism, diversity of the organism. When you learn all the organisms in detail, then it is called as systematics. And the uses of systematics is, it helps in providing knowledge of great diversity of plants and animals. So when you learn systematics, you are getting information about everything. So it is giving you a great knowledge about the diversity of organism. It also gives you information regarding the relationship between the organisms, regarding their dwelling place, regarding their habits, their mode of nutrition, their mode of reproduction. So many information can be you can get it from the study of systematics. It also helps you to it also gives you information about the phylogeny of the organisms. Phylogeny is the evolutionary history of the organism. So it helps you to identify the organism, its ancestors. We believe that human beings have our ancestors are ape. So what is the similarity between present human beings and the apes? A study is done. We learned about paleontology last year in 10th standard. So there is carbon data method, so many different methods by which you can sort out the differences as well as similarities between the organisms and their ancestors. So study of systematics also gives you useful information about the phylogeny or the evolutionary history of the organism. It also helps in identifying the newly discovered organisms and to study about these organisms, study their differences as well as similarities through the study of systematics, because systematics covers everything: morphology, It covers anatomy, it covers the ecological part, it covers the physiological part, and it also helps you to understand about the biochemistry of the cell of the organism. So when any new organism is discovered through systematics, the study of these organisms also become easy for you to you can study these organisms, the variations in the organisms, the diversity in the organism based on systematics. We will stop over here, children, and the next lecture will take the remaining units. Thank you so much for your patient hearing.